And you're on.
All righty. Well, welcome everyone. Still trying to figure out where I can see people, but welcome, welcome, welcome. Oh, hi, Lena. Where are you typing in from? And actually, Lena kicked off the party because I was going to ask everyone to enter their names and let us know where you're joining from. Hi, Brianna. And Lena, you're in New York. Great. I know there are a couple other people already in the room. Hi, Denise in LA. And Brianna, of course, is in Portland. Letitia, hi, Letitia, Chicago. Mithun in Paris. Oh, wow. That is awesome. All right, so we are going to get started. Anyone that knows me knows I like to start and end on time. So welcome to the Lead on Purpose webinar. I am Dr. Juliana Hines, and I am so glad you joined me. Aside from being your facilitator today, I am a leadership development and career advancement expert, and you will find me spending most of my time coaching leaders on becoming stronger in their leadership roles. And that leadership role doesn't necessarily have to have a title, just as leaders, as well as helping others with their career advancement strategies. But today, I'm going to share some ideas and some strategies around employee engagement. While I do that, put in the chat, oh, hi, Thomas, he's in DC. Put in the chat what drew you to today's session. I want to make sure I at least try to address anything that you have or any needs that you have for this session. I am going to I want this session to be engaging, so I'll have questions throughout the session. Hi, Tom, and he's in Denver. If you have questions, hold them, put them in the chat, and I'll try and answer all your questions at the end of the session. But I will also be asking you questions throughout the session. And as much as I can, again, I'm going to make this as interactive for all of us as possible. So whether you're leading from within the team or ahead of the team, employee engagement is so key. And it's important for many reasons. And we're going to talk about those reasons today. We're also going to talk about how to get engaged yourself, as well as help others to be engaged. I had a friend, she might be joining us, that asked, well, is this only for people leaders? Definitely not. If you are an individual contributor, if you are a business owner, we can still talk about how to keep you engaged and how to keep others that you work with engaged as well. So let's get started, and we're going to get started with a definition. So I hope everyone can see the slides well. Employee engagement is really about the degree to which employees are passionate about their work, committed to the organization, as well as willing to put in the extra time and effort to get the job done. Now, if you can, put in chat any other definition that you would add to employee engagement, or actually just give me a thumbs up or you agree if that definition fits your understanding of employee engagement. And if it doesn't, then I would love to hear what you want to add to it. So I have a question for you. So now I do want you all engaged. What does employee engagement look like? How can you tell employees are engaged? What will they say? What will they do to demonstrate engagement? Now, I have a few answers for you, but again, just to get everyone involved, Tom says emotionally connected to the team as a manager and to the organization. Thank you. Anyone else? And Mithun, I see your question about how to engage virtual teams. Any other ideas of what employee engagement looks like. Selena says employees are engaged when they're asking questions, getting confirmation on projects, connecting with leaders, colleagues, collaborating. Great, Lena. Those are great answers. And Stefan says where he can help out. How can he help out? Brianna says engaged employees speak up. They have a balance of psychological safety and accountability. Absolutely. That is a key word, Brianna, accountability. I like that. And then sharing the values and standing by them in good and bad times. Mithun, I assume you mean sharing the values of the organization, which I think absolutely keeps employees engaged. Tom and I used to work for an organization that really aligned for me with my own personal values and how to commit to what it was job search or how to achieve a goal. So it was a really nice fit when I entered into the organization on helping others to do that as a coach. And then Thomas says, I might have missed some, but Thomas says when they check in and where they stand in their growth and personal brand within the organization. Good, when they're checked in on where they stand. And then Naguna, hi Naguna, sense of purpose for every employee, everyone, clear and fuel the value they are bringing to the team and organization. And Stefan, last one, takes responsibility of the project and organization. You all, these are all great answers. I'll share what I came up with, and I might have touched on a few of yours. One is about, and I think someone said it, one is about open communication. You're communicating as either, again, as a leader or an individual contributor with the people that you're working with your colleagues, with your teams, with your peers, with your senior management. You're making it a positive experience for others. So when you're engaged, others want to be around you. You know, they enjoy your presence and your company. You're thinking about the big picture, and I know someone else also said about being collaborative and having a collaborative outlook, and looking for and sharing ways to improve on processes, improve on their own development. So engaged employees are into, okay, what can I do differently, better, faster, stronger, whatever it is to make my work and the business work. Exceeds goals and expectations. That also is a good sign of an engaged employee. And I know when I own my own business now, but when I was working in corporate, when I was pursuing the goals of the organization or had my own goals, I was really passionate about what my team was trying to do. Then that was when I was most engaged. And then also, you know, I've heard this from other leaders, engaged employees are also trying to develop. They are personally and professionally developing themselves. I was working with a leader the other day, and he was giving me a description of his 4 team members that he's a manager of. And he said 2 are really go-getters. They take all the training classes. They want to learn. The other 2, they're pretty complacent, and there's nothing wrong with that, but they're not trying to advance. They're not trying to grow even in their position. Hi, Vanessa. And, you know, he was able to differentiate between those that were really engaged in the work and those that were doing the work, but not necessarily engaged. Those were the individuals he said he had to check up on more, have more conversations with, because they didn't seem to have as much interest or energy. So that's another good indicator of engagement, is the level of energy someone's bringing to the work. And he said their level of energy wasn't as grand. I would say one more piece about employee engagement. Another way to say engagement is the level of commitment. And I think a couple of you have already said that. that engaged employees are also committed employees. Again, willing to stay as late, come as early, not necessarily that you're going to do that with them all of the time, but that they are willing to do whatever needs to be done. Now, let me go back to the chat. Vanessa says, engaged employees take the initiative, absolutely, offer new ideas, and contribute to positive change. Absolutely. And Denise says, yes, engaged employees don't run out the door at 4:59 p.m., right? That is so true. Now, let's flip it. What are some of the signs of disengaged employees? And you could just flip everything that you just said, but put it in chat. What are some signs of disengaged employees? What do you see them doing? What do you see them saying that gives you an indication that they're not as connected, they're not as committed to the work? I'm going to give you a few minutes to put in chat, what does a disengaged employee look like? So Denise says, the negative talkers, they can demotivate the larger team. Isn't that true? So someone that's not engaged is, not only are they not engaged for themselves, but they're not concerned about the engagement of the team. Stephen, I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name. I'm trying to get it right. Half done work. Chaos and confrontational on the job. Letitia says doing the bare minimum. Methune, they create problems out of solutions. That's awful, right? You have someone that you're trying to have them be part of the solution and they are creating the problems instead. These are great answers, you all. Dr. Vanessa says disengaged employees find lots of reasons not to take on new projects or initiatives. So they come with excuses, right? Or Lena says they check out completely. They show up late, they leave early, they do the bare minimum. Tom says they are consistently against virtually everything. Oh my goodness, yes. They also make those around them disengaged. You know, there's a couple of sayings that can definitely align with what you're saying, Tom. You know, they say one bad apple can ruin the whole bunch. There's a scripture verse that says a bad company corrupts good character. And so, yes, when you have that, it spreads like yeast or like a virus. Forgive me for saying that in this time. But, you know, when someone's negativity infects the rest of the team, it can have devastating consequences. And Nirguna says they spend all the time on blind blaming everything. Nirguna, can you put more in the chat on what blind blaming is? And Brianna says they make excuses. So those are all great. Nirguna, I hope you share with us what blind blaming is. I think I know what you mean, but want you to give us an example or a definition. So some signs I came up with, and I think most of you have already touched on these. They fall behind or don't do the work at all, and they have excuses like a lot of you said. Their work is good enough. They don't strive for excellence or strive to make it better. They might be withdrawn and antisocial, right? I mean, I'm an introvert, and so I get you need your time and, you know, being away from everybody to recharge. I do too, but this is a different type of withdrawal that you get the sense that they really don't want to be around everybody else, not just that they're trying to build their energy up. Another example, and I think someone also said it, is they're standoffish. Oh, I'm sorry, they're absent. They're, you know, then you look at their absenteeism rate, right? They're not showing up. They're not, you know, they're sick all the time, or they're taking personal time off. So they're not really, and you know what, let me say for one, I've been there. Okay. So I am not innocent of some of this behavior. In my early career, I would say this was me. And it was me for many reasons that we will talk about in just a few minutes. But took sick time whenever as soon as I accrued it, I would take sick time. I was not interested in the industry I was in, which was part of why I wasn't engaged. I wasn't trying to be interested in the industry, which was also an indicator that I wasn't engaged. And then I wondered why, even though I was driven and interested in growth, I wondered why I wasn't growing in the company. Now, there were other reasons that added to that, not just my disengagement, but I can definitely speak to being disengaged in a role. And I'm sure some of you can as well. Let's see what everyone's saying. So Denise said, it's so true. I think you're talking about affecting other employees. It can sabotage your ability to lead the rest of the group effectively. Yeah, so disengaged employees don't just affect them, they affect the rest of the team. They talk about, have you heard, good morals corrupt by bad company? Yes. And Thomas said he once had an employee who took sick time off, but then selfie videoed himself at the beach. Oh no. So, Slacker 101, don't take pictures if you're not at work, if you called in sick, you've decided to go to the beach. And Tom, yes, we all have been in both seats at some point in our careers. And I think it's important to keep that in mind as we work with others, that what made you engaged, and then how can you connect with others to help them to plug back in if they are disengaged. Sir Naguna, thank you for elaborating. He says, Blind is an app, which is, I did not think it was an app. Blind is an app which is used for all anonymous posts. Disengaged engineers don't speak up their concerns, suggestions. They blame or list out them in the Blind app. So thank you, Naguna, because I didn't even know that existed. And he continued, they list out the excuses for not being successful. And then Mithun says they are like dead weight on a horse carriage. The others are overloaded with the weight of disengaged employees. Absolutely, because if they're disengaged and they're not doing their work, guess who gets to pick it up? Is their team. So it's vital, whether, again, you are leading employees or leading a team, or you're leading from the middle, meaning you're on the team, within the team. You have the influence, you can have the influence to encourage others to pull their own weight, to step it up, if you will, and to engage. But engagement isn't just engagement. We're going to talk about in a moment how to engage. You can't just tell about somebody, okay, get with the program, start engaging. You have to have a few things in place. So we'll talk about that in a few minutes. But before we do, and I'm sure most, if not all of you know why high engagement is so important. Well, when someone is engaged, you have yes, it is involvement, Stephen. So you have higher retention. People want to stay in the organization when they're engaged, as well as you do. So if you're an individual contributor and maybe you're not leading a team, you being engaged is important, so you're staying connected to the organization. I wasn't engaged in the role that I told you in my early career. I wasn't connected, and no one was connecting me. No one was even trying to engage me. And so eventually, of course, what did I do? I left. It also leads to higher productivity and performance. Have you ever worked on a project that you were just so engrossed in, you didn't look at the time for hours, you didn't even think about eating, you were just in the zone? Give me a yes if you've ever been there. That's engagement. That's you being in the flow. And when you're in the flow, it leads to, again, just a heads down yes. Thank you, Denise. when you are in the flow, it does lead to being more productive, and it leads to better performance. Tom says highly engaged people are also engaged outside of work. They are better with the family. Yes, Tom, they're better with the family and friends and are much more likely to volunteer. So they're happier. I should have put that there. Engaged people are simply happier. And that does not only the organization well, but it does the family and the community well also. You're not coming home grumpy every night or most of the time. You're happy with the work that you're doing, and you're being productive, which again now then feeds into the fulfillment of the work that you're doing, because more fulfillment means more engagement, more productivity, more performance, and now you're in a positive cycle. But also, when you're thinking about what's in it for you and what's in it for the organization, well, if you're happy, your customers are going to be happy, right? So it's important not only for you to be engaged, but your teams to be engaged. I know over the past few years, leadership has been a key focus, as I believe it should be. Again, going back to that early career experience, the leaders I worked with, they didn't know what to do with me. I can't fault them. They didn't. They weren't trained. They didn't have the support. They didn't have a coach like me and some of you to help them be better leaders and stronger leaders. And so when I was unhappy, guess what? I tried to deliver good customer service, but I probably could have done better. So focusing on leadership development and ensuring that leaders are being as strong as possible for their teams, you can see that it impacts other things, not just the person's well-being. And of course, there's the bottom line, higher profits. Who doesn't want to make more money, not only in the organization, but if you're more engaged? What I have found, and I wish I had found a study to support it, but I'm sure there is one out there. When I'm more engaged, I'm making more money too, versus when I'm not engaged. Number one, I don't want to do the work that I'm in, so there's no point in trying to get more work, right? So I'm going to check the chat. Dr. Vanessa says, absolutely, you lose track of time. So she's talking about being in the zone because you're so immersed in the joy of the work. Exactly. And there's usually more on time than management and boss. There's usually more on time than Stephen, can you elaborate on that? I'm either reading it wrong or I'm not understanding it the right way. And then Letitia says, an important addition is that engaged employees stay the course. Yes, even when the work is not enjoyable. Thank you for saying that. Even when the work is not enjoyable, but is necessary. So I'm sure you've all heard of the Pareto principle, the 80-20 rule. 20% of our jobs, even if we are engaged, 20% of our jobs might not be enjoyable. I don't like billing. I don't like a lot of the admin work I do. I'd much rather be working one-on-one with my clients or facilitating like I am today. I'm fully engaged. My energy is here. When I have to do something I don't feel like doing, I will procrastinate and I will put it off to the next day. But because the work is so important, because my clients are so important, at some point I give myself a kick in the butt and say, okay, get it done, because this supports what you're doing. So yes, I fully agree that even when you don't want to do it, even when you're not engaged in the work, you're going to get the job done. Thank you, Letitia. Stephen says, engaged employees know how to stay the course even during the hardship times. So you're saying the same thing, and difficult times too, right? So they don't jump ship, right? They are consistent. They are supportive, even, whether there's a downturn in the economy, which we've certainly experienced. And I would say that has to do with loyalty. If I were to give it one word to Stephen and Letitia's statements, it would be loyalty. Engaged employees are loyal. And Tom's agreeing with Letitia. Engaged employees are much more resilient, yes, than disengaged employees, which is so important during these times. I recently heard someone talk about resilience and what it is, and they use the analogy of a tree being in a storm. And the storm can come even if you're in the middle of a hurricane. And if the tree is resilient, it has deep enough roots, it's strong enough, it's going to bend over, but it's not going to break. And so that, well, I don't know if it has anything to do with employee engagement or not, but that's, when I hear resilience, that's now the picture that comes to mind. Stephen says they love the work that they show up to work more on time than management. Okay, got you. And even the bosses is what he meant. Sorry, no, you're fine. So they love the work, and they get to they show more work than their focus is on time management. I think that's what you're saying, Stephen. So thank you. So let's now jump into what does engagement look like for you? And I really do believe that employee engagement is a key differentiator in the organizations, whether you're a leader, whether you're an individual. Well, again, I don't consider a leader with a title, whether you're a people manager or an individual contributor. Engagement is really a differentiator, and it's a differentiator because engagement, you have to intentionally engage. You have to find ways to be engaged. No worries. Hi, Mary. No worries, you're late. I'm glad you're on. You have to intentionally be engaged. And to do that, there are a few things to consider. And I'm just realizing I uploaded my slide deck as a PowerPoint because it was strongly recommended, but now it took away my animation. So just pretend all of this is being animated and flying in one at a time. But the first thing, and I break, for most of you that know me, I have a newly released book called Leading on Purpose, and a book before that called Living on Purpose. And I break purpose into an acronym, PURPOSE. And I've done the same thing here as well, because for me, leading on purpose, living on purpose requires intention. It requires being deliberate, and it requires commitment and being focused and doing your best every day. So what does it take to be engaged as an individual? First, find your passion. You have to pursue your passion. We had already said, if you're not enjoying the work that you're doing, if you're not engaged in that way, thank you, Lena, then, if you're not passionate about it, and it doesn't have to be, it could be different things for different people. It could be you're passionate about data. You like numbers. You could be passionate like I am about people. You want to help, or you want to support others in some sort of way. You could be passionate about generating ideas for yourself or for others, or you could be passionate about things. Some people are passionate about like being a mechanic. Praise God, because that is not my gift. So make sure you're pursuing your passion. The second thing, understand. So this is about self-reflection. What are you reflecting on? Well, for most of you know that about a SWOT analysis, and SWOT stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So you're doing a self-assessment, and Tom will know this, and others on the line if you're coaches, about not only a self-assessment, but doing what's called a 360 and asking others to give you feedback. That's so important in terms of knowing what you're bringing to the table, knowing what's going to engage you. So again, we're talking about engagement. I'm going to stop and read some of the chats. Thank you all for the congratulations on the book. I'll just say Brianna says it's so good. Stephen asked, good to hear about the new book. And Thomas said, tell the title again. So I said it really fast and I apologize. The title is Leading on Purpose, Keys, or The Black Woman's Guide. I was thinking about my other book, Leading on Purpose, The Black Woman's Guide to Shattering the Glass Ceiling. Now, I wrote it specifically from a Black woman's perspective to Black women, but it is an excellent tool for all leaders. It's an excellent tool for those who are helping other Black women to advance their careers, whether you're a mentor, a people leader, what have you. I think it's a great book for all others. So don't let the title scare you. I just wanted to draw and target a particular audience to getting some more tools for themselves. Thank you, Mithun. Lena says, can't wait. Thank you for putting it in the chat, Sabrina. So let's continue. So self-differentiators, your passion, your understanding, and then rise to your potential. You got to show up every day. You got to challenge yourself every day. If you're going to be engaged, you have to figure out, okay, what's going to engage me today? Because what engaged me yesterday might not engage me today. For example, I just said I finished a book. Well, that had me engaged for quite a few years. Well, now the book's released, yay. It doesn't engage me anymore. I have to find something else to write about. So making sure you're rising to that potential. I'm always pushing myself, not that I'm not celebrating, but I'm pushing myself to discover, okay, what's next? That keeps me engaged. Might not keep you engaged, but find out what does. Rise to that potential for yourself. You must prioritize because we have a lot of things to focus on as we go throughout the day. And again, this is about being intentional, being conscious of being an engaged leader or an engaged contributor. And then having one-on-ones, making sure that you are meeting not only with your managers, those that are leading you, but also peers or your teams on what's engaging them. What I have found working as a coach with the leaders I've worked with is a lot of leaders are taking best practices. A lot of leaders are taking the time to have one-on-ones with their employees, with their direct reports, and finding out what motivates them. Because when you find out what motivates someone else and you can meet them right where they are, then not only are you engaged, but you're helping someone else to be as well. Okay, I'm going to take a short breath. And Mary also put the title of the book in the chat. Thank you, Mary. Am I going too fast for you guys? Am I talking too fast? Let me know. I want to make sure you're getting a lot out of this, or as much as you can. Okay, thank you, Lena. Oh, one thing I really enjoy. So purpose, pursue your passion, understand what you're bringing to the table, understanding the value that you bring, rising to your potential, prioritizing, making engagement important, having one-on-ones so you're partnering with people to get engaged, and then surrounding yourself with the right people. You all talked about it already, what a disengaged employee looks like. Those aren't the people you want to be surrounding yourselves with. They're going to bring you down. Having other people that are engaged are going to keep you engaged. They're going to fire you up. They're going to inspire you. They're going to motivate you. Make sure that inner circle, we can't push everybody out of our lives. Some people have to be there. I won't say for what reasons, but you know who they are. But that we can choose whether they are our closest confidants or more at the edge of our lives. Surround yourself in your closest circle with those that are going to support you, they're going to encourage you, and they're like-minded. And I said it a little bit before, but I'll say it again. It's important. Engage every day. Find what's going to engage you and then pursue it with all your passion, with all your heart. Don't lose, and pay attention, because if you're losing your passion, you're not finding yourself engaged, then it might be time to reassess and understand and think about what you need to do to re-engage. And when we talk about surrounding yourself, I have to put a plug in for coaches. having the accountability, which someone said earlier, is so key. What I found as a coach for my own life is that I can do some things by myself. I don't need accountability. But if you're finding it hard to stay the course, if you're finding it hard to engage, or you're trying to find a way to engage, having a coach, having an accountability partner is, Stephen, having an accountability partner is very key. They will keep you on your toes. They will ask you how you're doing, and they will keep you reminded, and that's what Dr. Vanessa did for me. They will keep you reminded of your commitment. Hi, Wendy. Good to see you. Oh, it's so good to see so many people on here. And thank you. Let me know. Good pace. Cool. Let's see. Glad you're feeling blessed, Denise. Dr. Vanessa said, rise to your potential. Love that. And Stephen, you know what? I can't do the Medea voice. I'm not even going to try. But Stephen says, you have to know the difference between those who are your leaves in your tree and those who are like dead bark and being able to know the difference. That is so true. It reminds me of the serenity prayer, right? Grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Love it, Stephen. Thank you for that. I wish I could do Medea for y'all. Okay, so let's talk about what are the team differentiators. So again, the purpose acronym. Some of these are similar, and I won't go through them in as much detail, but some of these are a little bit different. So the P for purpose in team differentiators is for being purposeful and intentional. So it really is making employee engagement important, and being intentional about how you're going to go about employee engagement. That also means how you're going to measure it, how you're going to know when you're successful. And as individually working with people at the front of our coaching engagement, I'll always ask, okay, what is the goal? And how are we going to know we got there? What's going to be that indicator? So understanding what employee engagement means, not only to you as an individual and your team, but also what does it mean to the organization? So being intentional and purposeful about really immersing yourself in employee engagement. Understanding current reality. So you got to know where your team is now, right? So again, whether you're leading from the middle or within the team, or you're in front of a team, checking in with everybody and finding out, well, where are they at? That goes along with the one-on-ones. That's a good place to do it, is in the one-on-ones, is finding out, well, are they engaged and how engaged are they? There are assessments out there. Tom might be a good resource for that. But also you could do something very simple and say, on a scale of 1 to 10, how engaged do you feel? 10 being super engaged, 1, I was about to say 0, which is possible. 1 being, I'm about to check out, I'm looking for other jobs. Someone earlier talked about psychological safety. Make sure it's safe for your team, whoever that team member is, to share with you what's really going on, so that you will know what you can do to support them and help them, even if it means helping them out of the organization. Now, I wouldn't do that as a coach. I wouldn't tell anybody that as a coach, but sometimes the best thing you can do for someone, the best blessing you can give them, is to help them find the right fit. So ensuring that you're supporting others in understanding where their motivation is, how much they're engaged. Also, it's important for you to remain flexible and be inclusive. Engagement for you might not be engagement for others. And I'm going to talk about inclusive leadership in just a minute as an add-on to employee engagement. I already talked about prioritizing. Engagement has to be a priority every day. If you go into work and you see indicators, those behaviors we talked about earlier, of someone who's not engaged, that might be time to ask them what's up, what's going on, what can I do? Or at least stay observant and see if that was just a bad day. But it has to be important to you. You have to make it a priority. Again, I talked about the one-on-ones, finding out about others' engagement and whether they're engaged. And striving to meet their needs. Sorry, couldn't see it so close or so far away. Striving to meet their needs. So once people tell you what motivates them and what would help them, you got to follow through. This is another saying, not having to do with engagement, but when people tell you who they are, believe them. Well, when people tell you what motivates them, believe them, and then help them to get engaged if you can. And then set the example, goes back to the previous slide. You have to be engaged before you can engage anybody else. So it has to start with you. So I'm going to stop and check the chat again, catch my breath, for you guys to catch up on any notes, because if you're anything like me, you might be writing furiously. Stephen said, Dr. Juliana, you are sharing some very insightful and imperative stuff. Thank you for that feedback, Stephen. I'm glad that it is helpful to you all. And that was my prayer coming into this. I wanted to make sure that this was something that you all could get something out of. And Stephen's asking a question. You know what, Stephen, I'm going to answer that question right now because I'm afraid if I keep going, I will forget. And we're almost to the end of my slide deck anyway. So good place for a question. He said, from my perspective, what do I see as a Black businesswoman, the psychological safety as it pertains to Blacks in work and in the world and in work? Whew, that's a topic. I will say it's that psychological safety for me has not been there. I've tried. So I would say earlier in my career, when I thought it was safe, I tried to share where I was coming from with people, and it wasn't well received. So I learned how to not share, which is not the best place to be. But as I've grown as a professional and as a businesswoman, I'm learning once again how to share what's true for me and be confident and comfortable in it. And I think, not only growing as a professional, as a business person, but with that growing in age, I'm starting not to care about what others think or say. What's most important, and it goes back to engagement and passion, what's most important, if I'm not doing any harm, if I'm not hurting anyone in the process, is what's true for me. So for those of you that will get my book, you'll see that there are stories of working with, for example, older white men. And for me, that was a difficult experience, and one of the reasons why I wasn't so engaged. I'm thankful that that is not my only experience. And so when writing that book, I did stop and question how explicit did I want to be. Another example is with an article someone just asked me to write. And it's not for a Black magazine, it's for a coaching magazine with a diversity of readers. And I also asked myself, back to your question, Stephen, no, you're not alone. How explicit do I want to be? Because I've had the experience of getting the backlash from someone who didn't appreciate my experience or my truth. So in terms of psychological safety, that again, very important, particularly for your Black employees. And Stephen, you know what, you really just got me to segue into the next slide. But before I do, Tom says one of the most important things a manager can do is to define the right outcome and then allow the employee to utilize their unique talents to reach them, legislate the outcome, not the steps. That is so true, Tom. So what works for employees or what works for the other person, not what necessarily works for you. A new phrase that you all might be hearing recently is one size fits one. Not one size fits all, one size fits one. And that's the way I would sum up what Tom is saying. You agree on the outcome, well, let that person do their thing. Let that person use their gifts and their talents and all that they bring to the table to get to that outcome, which means you might have to take your hands off of it for them to do their best work and for them to feel completely supported and totally engaged. Denise says she hears me. Thomas, thank you. You're sorry to hear that. You know what? It's made me better, stronger, and I can share these stories with other people. So I'm sorry to say it, but I'm not sorry that I went through it. Stephen said, do you ever think it has been safe for any Black person or Black person of color? I'm sure it's safe somewhere. So I'm not going to do a blanket, no, it hasn't been safe. You're welcome, Thomas. I'm not going to say it's not safe for everyone. And I can go well into this, but I'll say at least here in the US, generally, it hasn't been safe. And that's a very general statement. Again, I'm thankful for like Tom and others that I know that that is not my only experience. So we're going to talk, we got 14 minutes, you guys. So we're going to talk really briefly about the 6 C's of inclusive leadership. And this really goes back to what Stephen was asking questions around and why inclusive leadership is so important. Because one size doesn't always fit all. So even within a group, if you're all women or all Black or all 50 years old, that it's not going to apply to everybody. And so it's important to have these 6 traits of what Deloitte found to be inclusive leadership. And what they did, they conducted a study that examined what is the new context leaders are now working in and what they have to lead in, and what characteristics and mindsets do they need to adopt in order to be successful in their markets, as well as with their customers, as well as managing innovation and then working with their talent. So they found what has now become known as the 6 C's. I don't know if Deloitte actually called it this. They call it I think they call it the 6 traits of inclusive leadership. And I could talk for a whole hour about these 6 traits, but I'm going to go through them, maybe not too briefly, but briefly. The first is being cognizant, and that's being aware of our own biases. I was speaking with a friend and colleague yesterday, and he acknowledged we all have them. I always tell people biases and categorizing things are the way we make sense of our world. We cannot lump everything into the same category. So for example, I've been focused on my computer and interacting with you all for the last 48 minutes. But now that I'm being more cognizant, I'm seeing all the things in my periphery, and that's becoming distracting. So what do I need to do is I need to focus. So having a bias, putting things in categories, it's okay, but you have to be aware of when you are accessing your bias and when that bias is being harmful to another individual or group of people. You have to have courage. That's the 2nd C. Willing to take risks, willing to be vulnerable and not knowing what to do. Now that doesn't mean, and maybe some of you have heard this already, it doesn't mean going to a Black or Hispanic or Asian or LGBTQ person to have them teach you everything there is to know about whatever that group is, but it is willing to take a risk and be vulnerable and say, I don't have all the answers. Because over the past few weeks, people have been asking me, Juliana, what do I do? Non-Black people have been asking me over the uprising, what do I do? And I'm like, I don't know what to do. We can talk about it together. So, and really, Stephen, that goes back to being vulnerable and that psychological safety, admitting that I don't know. As a Black woman, that can be hard, particularly in a corporate environment. Committed, understanding, and that plugs into employee engagement as well. Being committed to being an inclusive leader. This is not a one and done situation. It's being committed to learning. It's being committed to growing as a leader in terms of your own development. And being an inclusive leader then now opens you up to lead others and not lead in the one size fits all. So I just wanted to remind you all why this is important. Cultural intelligence goes back to taking risks. I don't know, but willing to learn about others' cultures and taking the time to do the work, do the research. If someone asks me someone asked me what books for her daughter are written by African American authors, and her daughter I think is 10, and she said, what books would I recommend? My youngest is 15. What I would have to do is Google it. And so that's what I told her. I was like, I don't know off the top of my head. Google it. I'm sure you'll find a wealth of information. So before you approach your Black friends and colleagues or any other to you, do your own research and then find someone who is open and willing, and don't just launch into, well, what do you think? But ask them, are you willing to have this conversation with me? And if they are, then you can have those questions. And we're going to talk about the questions in just a second. Collaboration. This talks about willing to pull others in, especially as a leader. Hearing different, here's the diversity of thought and ideas. Hearing from people that don't look like or have the same backgrounds as you is important to being an inclusive leader. Then they feel included, and then they feel more engaged. And then finally, and then I'll go to the chat, is curiosity. Asking questions and listening to understand. So what does that mean? It means being curious about someone else's perspective. If someone else is sharing and this goes back to psychological safety, if someone else is sharing their truth and what is true for them, you're listening to understand, and you're asking questions to get a better understanding rather than finding a way to discount that individual. You know what? Now that I went through all of these are good, just general relationship traits as well. Just, if you're in any relationship. So, listening to understand, willing to pull others in, understanding that you're in it for the long haul. These are all great leadership traits in general. And again, ways to engage employees. So I'm going to go to the chat. Thomas, I think I said you're welcome, but you're welcome for sharing my story. Thank you, Denise. Stephen says, okay. I think that's the way you meant it with the exclamation point. Dr. Vanessa, thank you for saying that. I don't know what I said at that point, Dr. Vanessa, but it's tough being put on the spot to teach others. Yes, it is very tough. And I would say with someone like Dr. Vanessa, who I know personally, as well as myself, someone who wants to help, it takes a lot of energy to, especially during this time, to teach other people when you're not prepared for what they're going to ask. So again, give other people space to see if now's the right time, whenever now is, to have the conversation. And that again goes back to curiosity. Stephen says, one thing I have noticed since me and my family have moved back here to the States. Where'd you move from? There needs to be cultural intelligence, learning among, even learning among our Black culture. I absolutely agree. I had the fortune and the blessing to grow up in a suburb of San Francisco that was very, 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 very diverse. I was just on the phone with a girlfriend last night, and we were just, she called it going down the rabbit hole, walking down memory lane of people we used to hang out with. And it wasn't just all Black kids. It was Asian and Hispanic and Samoan and, this rainbow of people that that we enjoyed going to school with. And we learned so much from each other. That is why to this day I love Filipino food. I love lumpia. I love pancit because of the experiences I had with my childhood friends. So I do think it's imperative to build cultural intelligence, particularly in the workplace as a leader in engaging employees, because once again, one size doesn't fit one. Uh, what might work for, say, a Black employee might not work for a white or an Asian or Hispanic employee. You have to get to know people culturally, and you have to get to know them individually. And Brianna said, so important to listen with the same passion in which we want to be heard. Oh my God, Brianna, so true. Lena says, this is fantastic. I'm so glad I signed up for the session. I'm so glad you did too. And I'm so glad it surpassed your expectations. Denise says she seconds that. Yes, you also felt that after living abroad. Denise, we have a couple of minutes. So if you could elaborate a little bit on that, what you felt living abroad, that would be great. And Stephen, maybe you and Denise know each other? We have all lived in Europe, Madrid, Spain, Paris, France, and many other places. Oh, maybe you're talking about you and your family. So that's well traveled. That's awesome. And that's what you get to come and teach the rest of us about those experiences. I, for one, love to learn about other cultures. And when I am being curious and asking questions, I will tell someone in advance, I love to learn, I'm curious, this is why I'm asking these questions. And give them an opportunity to tell me, I don't want you asking these questions, or this is a little awkward, or whatever it is. You all, it is 12:56 my time, and I just have one more slide, and that is just recapping. Actually, I have two more slides, recapping what we just talked about, that employee engagement is vital for productivity, for performance, profits, customer service, and probably a few other things that I've forgotten and that you all might have mentioned. It's a key leadership differentiator. When you have engaged employees, you're going to see differences in your KPIs. You're going to see differences in the culture of your team, and you're going to see differences in just how you engage and interact with one another. You want to be sure to lead inclusively. Again, think one size fits one, not one size fits all. You will be a more engaging leader and a more engaging individual. And like Tom said, not just at work. I don't take my mom hat off anymore. That was another thing I had to separate, Stephen, when I was in the corporate world, was being a mom and being a professional and that psychological safety. We don't really take those hats off. So learning about the engagement, what excites me for you all is that you're learning about it, not just for work, but home in your communities as well. And so now I have a challenge to you. I wouldn't be a coach if I didn't have a next step for you or an action item. Quickly, we got 2 minutes left. While I'm looking at the other chats, type in the chat what you can do, what you will do within the next 24 hours that is going to put you more in the direction of employee engagement, either engaging more yourself or engaging your teams. Okay, we have 1 minute left. I'm going to try and get to these. And Stephen said, wow, he lived in all those places as a child and even as an adult. That's impressive. Denise says it was fascinating living in Latin America, Europe, and Asia. Absolutely. Different cultures, different expectations. Cultural intelligence is necessary for everyone. Letitia asked for permission to ask questions. Brianna said she's going to prioritize. And Stephen said he's going through a training dealing with positive intelligence. I want to give you one last thing before you all leave, which is my contact information. If we're not already linked in, if you're not already following me, feel free to link in with me, follow me on Twitter, send me an email. Love to stay in touch. You guys have been great. Dr. Vanessa said start mapping out her plan for the fall. Good. And Mary said plan one thing that she will commit to each day. If you all are still on, I don't know if this thing ends automatically, but it's been a pleasure. You guys engaged so well, and I enjoyed our time together. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You guys made the session what it is. So I hope to be in touch with all of you. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. Thank you, Vanessa. Thank you all. Sabrina, are we still on?